How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in places? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Welcome to another edition of the Tactical Empire. I am joined by Sean Ryder. What's up, my man? How are you?
Hey, it's me. We're good. I'm good, man. It's been a good day. Good little start to the week. My daughter leveled up her first color belt in martial arts this weekend. So tonight's martial arts class, she'll be wearing her yellow belt for the first time. I'm a baby, man. When I literally, if you saw the video I posted to Facebook of her doing her little routine at the belt promotion, it's like a minute 15 in. It's a minute 15 long video. And around like the 50-second mark, I yell out, "There you go, Maddie." It took me that full 50 seconds to compose myself to be able to say that without like my voice squeaking, because every time I try and open my mouth to cheer for my kids, it's instant waterworks. Because it just puts me right back. Like, now I know how my parents felt. Why did my parents come to every practice? Why did my parents show up at every game, regardless if it was the sport I was good at or the starter or not? And it obviously I lost my mom. So like every time I try and like cheer for my kids, it's like I instantly see her because she was the loudest person at these things. And like, dude, I'm a baby. Especially when it comes to my daughter. Like I can't even cheer because I'm just gonna lose it.
That's all right, man. That's all right.
Yeah.
Just be there and support her. That's good. I love it. I love it, man.
She loves the support, but she doesn't, because she'll like look at you and she'll mean mug you. If you like give her a thumbs up, she'll just like squint her face at you. And it's like, I know you love it. Stop. She's like, you guys can come, but don't scream my name. Don't yell for me. Like, okay. Okay.
That's awesome, man.
Don't need to worry about me because I'm a ball baby when I try and do it anyways, Maddie.
There you go. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Tell her congrats.
Yeah. She's not, I mean, she shows up and she does the work, but it's not going to be her thing. I think her thing right now is soccer. She's excited about her third soccer season starting. But she shows up and does what the coaches and masters tell her to do, which is the point, right? Like, hey, try all these things. I don't need you to love them all, but I'm going to put you in here so you can, kick something and punch it. And then like yesterday, she pushed over her brother pretty good at home, who's 2.5 years younger than her. And I was like, okay, I like that she can push over a boy. But it's also your brother, and his head about hit the corner of the table. So careful.
Exactly. What are we going to chop it up about today, man?
We work with, we work with high performers. We work with people that want to be high performers. We work with people that feel like they've been stuck, plateaued, that they can't break through that next level. And I don't know about you, Jeff. I mean, you've worked with way more people than me in a one-on-one setting, and you've around super high performers. But one thing I struggle with as a mentor, and we're not going to come at it from a mentoring state. We're going to come back to the client here, or the listener, potential issue that they might be confronted with, is like very quickly I can see if someone is in something that they shouldn't be doing long-term. And the biggest struggle there isn't telling them that they aren't working in the area in which they need to be to maximize and get the results they want. It's actually showing them the pathway and getting them to take action to make a transition and change in their life. And we're not talking about creating new habits here. Like, this isn't the tactical habit tracking that we actually push a lot of in terms of a foundation, right? Like, move your body, eat better, sleep better, talk with your spouse, get outside of the house, et cetera, et cetera. What if someone actually needs to make a pretty big transition? And I don't care if we're going to be talking about business owners needing to sell, liquidate, straight up close and move on to the next venture, or someone that's maybe an employee, W-2 employee, regardless of their income level, like leaving that job and moving on to the next one, maybe venturing and going out on their own if they seem like they're a high value individual and they can go from an employee income to 1099 contract income, freelancer, whatever you want to call it now that we're in the gig economy. But how do you navigate and help prepare people to make transitions in their life to maximize the returns as quickly as possible minimize the delay between point of stoppage and point of growth and progress again.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the hardest one to analyze, quite frankly, is the business owner that is doing a certain role or not happy with where they're at, because like that one is hard because there's seasons of business that are shitty no matter what. And so like you may run into a business owner and they may be burnt out or just have no capacity for doing what they're doing anymore. And the knee jerk reaction is not to fucking burn the business down or sell the fucking thing. Um, so even if that's what they tell you they want to do, because like you have to get back to the why and peel it layers back on what they're looking for. Because like I always say, you can't jump to the next thing without being very deliberate in what you're doing, because you'll just build yourself the same scenario again, or build yourself a cage. Like if you're looking for freedom, which most of us are, like you venture out, you sell what you're doing, or move on to a new job or a new business, right? Like let's say I'm in fencing and I own a fencing business, and just like because I hate it and I hate the people I work with, if I sell it and I go into pest control, I'm probably going to have the same fucking scenario in 12 to 15 months that I had at the other job. So there's a lot of questions that go into that. Like, is it you? Is it the scenario?
Yeah.
One of the things we talk about all the time, and transparently, I don't give a shit. I mean, I'll say it. Like we came up in the gym space, and there is a ceiling on your earning potential in that space. When you talk about dollars to hours in investment and then turnaround, like if you own a boutique gym, your earning capacity is going to top out at some point, but it does that in every industry. Like let's say you're talking about the fencing industry, maybe the top earning net you could bring home is 400 grand. Great. Like it does that in the gym space, but it's lower, right? And then when you talk about replicating it or scaling it, the amount of headaches that go into scale is not a 1-to-1 ratio. And so like, are you going to have the same amount of problems as you do with one gym or 10 gyms? Can you stamp it and rubber stamp it and repeat it? And that's not really the case. And so like just using that as an example of something that wears people out, like it takes them years to get profitable in the gym space. And then a lot of times, and then once they do, they realize that their earning potential may be capped in that particular industry. And so I've seen this also with dog groomers and people that do things like that, where they trade their time for hours, and then you try to bill more and more, but you still only have 8 hours in a day or 10 hours in a day. And masseuse would be another person that would be in this same kind of category. Now it's different from a gym owner standpoint. I mean, not if you're a private trainer, because you've run into that too. You can only train so many clients in a day, right? Like you can raise your rates to a certain amount, but like it's still, even if you're charging $500 an hour, it's still $500 for that hour. And how many hours are you willing to put in a day? And like you're going to reach a ceiling there until you can figure out how to scale it. And so I say all that to say that you really have to dig into what the issue is. But for me, it's very important to be calculated on like what the next move is. We see this in real estate investing all the time. We have guys come into the group. The Tactical Empire is really 95% focused on people that want to invest in real estate, I would say. We do infinite banking into investment strategies using your infinite bank. And most of the people are doing real estate. We are seeing more businesses and things like that, like business acquisitions and things like that, to utilize that money in a way to make you more money, right? But you want to go into real estate full time. This is one I get all the time. Like I'm ready to get out of what I'm doing and I'm ready to go into real estate investing. And what does that look like? And so I think people oftentimes underestimate the amount of active income that they'll need to maintain on a regular basis. So when you talk about like, I'm going to quit my job or I'm going to sell this business, and like what I want to know is the runway that we have until we have to reach profitability again, with the next thing that we're doing. And what does that look like? And so the cool thing is, man, like, this is my game. I love thinking this way. I like, it's the way my brain works strategically, and the economy and technology has never been better for people like their brains work this way, because there's a million fucking things I can do to start side hustles, to create revenue streams, to do other things. And you don't necessarily, you may make $5,000 a month doing your job, right? You don't have to, just because you want to leave that job doesn't mean you have to find one thing that makes that $5,000 a month again. You could go do 3 things to make $6,000 a month, and you could be in a better position depending on how your time is utilized. But from that standpoint, I think what we really do, and what I dig in with, I would ask the person on the other end of that, like, you're about to make a huge life change. What do you need to consider? You need to consider everything that you're responsible for. Like, that's why it's so fun to be 25 years old and not have any fucking kids or responsibilities, because you can just go gangbusters. And you're like, oh, I don't have to think about what I'm going to do, because I can find my next meal. And we're pretty fortunate in the problems, quote unquote, that we have. And so, but for me, like a person with 4 kids and a wife and house, dogs, all the other responsibilities, businesses I have, like, I have partners that I have to return a return on investment to. I have lenders, like, so I've got a lot of obligations. So if I just say, hey man, I'm just sick of doing this shit, like, I've got to figure out how I fill the gaps for everything else. Right. And so, but again, I think from an end user standpoint, feeling this way, like, you need to dig into why you're feeling that way, and then what's truly going to fix the problem. Because usually it's kind of like a surface level emotion. You think what's going to fix the problem is not having this job anymore, or not being around that boss anymore, or not having that business partner anymore. But is it actually going to fix the deeper problem, or put you in a better off position from the standpoint of you and your family and your financial position and everything else, time, all of it?
Yeah. Maybe it will. I don't know. Who knows? You won't know. But where I go to, and I'm sorry that, like, I really love Jeff's response there, because it's really about the individual and some of the steps that they need to take. But I'm going to turn it to the financial side for me, because I think at the end of the day, this is why, regardless of your age or your income level, you need to be a steward of money. You need to have a strong financial foundation. You need to be able to tell the difference between a want and a need at different levels and seasons of your life, based on your responsibilities, like you said. And I think, I do like the phrase "fuck you money," but how much money is fuck you money? I think coupling that with your runway, right? How long can I survive? That's why I think it's Robert Kiyosaki who says, like, his definition of wealth is, if everything went to zero right now, and the only thing you had was the availability to have access to your money, your funds, how long could you live? I like that, right? Like, how long could you sustain your lifestyle if your income went to zero right now? And the people who can answer 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, like, to me, that may not be, like, quote, fuck you money, but that's enough money to say fuck you to your employer and take a couple months off to find the right next gig. That's again, some people don't like these terms, but, like, it's enough to say F you to a business that you might actually recognize is no longer serving you, not just an emotional thing. Cause I struggled with that for years, right? Like, oh man, I just want to close my business. And then a couple months later, it was like, oh, I'm glad I didn't. But then it finally got to a point where it was like, it was the thought. It was just undeniable now that it was, and for numerous reasons. It wasn't that I hated everything about it, but, like, it was, or just hated one thing about it, I should say. It was just wasn't serving anymore. But I could do that because, to go back to what you said, I did start to educate other areas. I did find other ways to make money. I did find other investment vehicles that required less time and less active attention. And certainly not early in the morning or late at night now that I was married with kids. And so I did get to a point where it was like, oh, I do have the runway. The thing that I'm teaching other people about, I have implemented. And now, not to just prove the point, but to prove the point, because it's what I want to do, I'm going to do this. I'm going to shut down this business and I'm going to focus on other areas. And I could only do that for me personally because I had the financial foundation. I knew what my runway was. I could take a hit on my income. I could take a hit on this. I could take a hit on that. Did I want to take a hit on income? No, but I was willing to. I think the only other people that should like rip the Band-Aid off are the people that are on the brink of, maybe a mental and physical breakdown, right? If it's really, I mean, that's a whole different other topic or area, but it's like, these aren't the people that are just struggling and stressed. These are the people who are struggling. Mm-hmm. They're not having good thoughts. They're not taking good actions. Their life is starting to fall apart. I think if I was put in that position, I'd rip the Band-Aid off real quick, regardless if it was my business or my employment. Because here's one thing that I've learned is, and we just had an episode where we recorded, talked about how work-life balance isn't a thing. And we talked about flow. We talked about integration. For me, I really liked the analogy of juggling balls. And I don't know who came up with it first, but it was like, imagine you're juggling, balls, and you're juggling your family, you're juggling your health, you're juggling your career. And let's just stick with three, right? Those main three: your family, your health, yourself, individuality, and your source of income. Well, some of those are made out of rubber and some of those are made out of glass. Your health, even though we put a high priority on health, to a certain extent, it's recoverable. Mm-hmm. So if you get off your habits for 30, 60, 90 days and you drop that health ball, like, that's made of rubber. It can bounce back as long as you get back on your habits. Your job, like, whether or not it's the income that you want, there's plenty of jobs. There's plenty of ways to make money, even if it's not up to your credentials. I'm not going to take that job because it's below me. If you need to make money for yourself or your family, you're going to figure out a way to make money, and you're going to do things that may not be up to snuff right now, while you go find the job that is, up your skill set and alleyway. But certain relationships, man, they're made of glass. We've met plenty of men that didn't take care of their relationships, and they're now on the backside of that, and they're not quite recoverable. Marriages, once you go through a divorce, the relationship might be better, but that marriage, you're not going to most likely go back and marry that person again. You dropped that ball and it was made of glass and it fucking broke. Yep. Now, kudos to you. I don't know if you want to chime in. Like, you talk about how you were focused on business and all this stuff, and the marriage wasn't great, whatever. But guess what? You didn't completely drop her. It didn't shatter. If it did, you got down on your hands and knees and you glued those pieces back together. So I think recognizing, like, which balls are you dropping and what are they made of? What are you missing to be able to pick that ball back up or not drop it? And for me, it does come down. It's a big, strong, my relationships matter, but like the financial foundation that I build, regardless of my age and income level, I want to reiterate that regardless of your age or income level, you need to be a steward of money, because at some point, that's your backstop. At some point, here's your two backstops, Jeff. This is what came up. Here's your two backstops: the people that are in your life that you're surrounding yourself with. Mm-hmm. Like, when I make my changes, like, it's my wife and now my kids, they're old enough to, like, my wife can tell them, hey, when daddy gets home, give him a hug. He had a rough, he made some hard decisions today. And we don't hide that from my kids. Like, when we closed my gym, my kids knew it, and they asked questions, and I gave them the answers. They're 6 and 3. They're not 16. They're 6 and 3. And I'm open. I'm like, hey, daddy made mistakes. Hey, daddy did this, and this is what I would do different. And this is what I would do better next time. So 1, that's my first backstop. 2, dude, the financial foundation that we built in our 20s that led into our 30s to put us where we are now, my stress level would be a lot higher after making changes, because if I didn't have that. So that's my 2, like, are you surrounded by people that you're building strong relationships with that can support you through transitions and change? And do you have the financial backing to be able to say F you to a certain extent and being able to actually pull the trigger on that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, like, when you were talking about that, like, what I think about regarding the finances and your financial aptitude and your ability to apply your knowledge, it buys freedom. And whether you call it freedom of like your ability to choose, or if it's just peace of mind,
Sure.
that is the same thing to me. I mean, like, are you, when you talk about fuck you money, it means fuck you because they don't care. Like it does, because it's insignificant. It doesn't matter. And the more you grow your financial nest egg, if you will, the less problems that you have, and that aren't solvable by money.
That's right.
I guess we're never at a point where we don't have any problems, right? But if you can eliminate the problems that are caused by money, or any problem that you have in your life that can be solved by money, then you have way less on your plate to deal with on a regular basis. Then you really have to look internally. That's why those people that make shitloads of money that hate themselves and like still want to kill themselves, it's because they're like, whoa, I don't like the person I have to spend all my time with, because now I don't have any distractions because my money has solved all my problems. So now it's just me sitting here with myself. And who is that? That's a tough conversation, right? So going back to what we started on, and then the other point that you hit on that I want to hit on is like your relationships matter. Like, and we talk about who's in your circle. And like, I think that the way I always see circles of relationships is it's concentric circles. Like it gets tighter and tighter. And like your immediate family is probably your closest in a lot of cases. And then it's your circle of associates or friends or whatever you want to call them. And so you need those people in your life that are going to be mentors, or people that you can bounce ideas off of and take stressful situations to, that are going to give you guidance, and they have an idea of who you are and like how you're going to react in the situation. That said, I mean, getting back to the topic of what you brought up at the beginning, which was like, are you going to make a huge life decision? Like it probably goes into these, like you're auditing and checking, like, what's your financial position? Okay. Like check, we're done. Like what's your relationship situation, and how will that impact your situation? And have you ran it by a couple trusted advisors? And whether that's your wife or whether that's your mentor or whoever it is, like, have you ran it by them? And this is why it's so important to oh God, man, my brain goes to different places, but like, that's why it's so important to keep your plans to yourself to an extent, but like also who you share your information with and who you take feedback from is so fucking important, because there are people in our lives. There are people that you and I know that have the largest scarcity mindset ever. And like, if you brought anything to them, they would shit all over it. They would say it's a stupid idea. And then what you have to do is you have to unpack that. Like, is that their problem? Are they projecting doubt in you? Or are they simply like, there's some people that they want you to have success until you get more successful than them. Like, just don't have as much success as me, and I'll bring you up with me.
Oh, there's science behind that. That's exactly how a lot of people think.
Yes. And so you have to be very careful when I talk about sharing your ideas with people. You have to be very careful the people that you're sharing that with, because the response given to you can make or break your next step. And so like, that's super important. And that pops into my mind when you bring this stuff up, because like, I think that it's the same thing, like with even maybe with your wife and like relationships. When you run something by your wife and she gives you an answer to something, does that come with like a history of reasons for that? Or because she's evaluating your past success or your past behaviors, or how is this going to affect me? And like, and that's nature. That's human nature. She's going to be like, how is this going to affect me? And then you guys have to get together and like peel that apart too. Whereas if you take it to a third party, like a mentor or an advisor or something, like they're not necessarily looking at what's in it for them. per se, or how it's not necessarily also going to impact them. They're not going to have to feed your kids at 6 o'clock at night, 5 days a week or anything like that. Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to think about before you make the big change. But I think you've hit on the big things to think about. Like, first of all, you got to be clear on your vision. Like, where are you going? Don't make a snap judgment, because it's just like weight loss. Everyone's like, I want to lose 100 pounds in fucking 6 months, but it took them 10 years to gain 100 pounds. Money's the same way. Business is the same way. So like, you build this business over 10 years. You don't want to throw it out in 3 months. And so you want to figure out like what the best strategic exit is for it. And that's why I'm such a big fan of like earnouts and things like that, like seller financing, especially in these service-based businesses like gyms and things like that. If you can sell it to an operator and sell a certain portion of equity and then do an earnout over time, you can backstop your income that you need heading out onto your next venture. And also then you just become the bank for that business eventually. Right. Yeah. So there's many strategic ways to go about doing this. And so, and that's also decided about like based on your answers that you come up with, like, why are you doing this? Like, because I'm super passionate about this, or I'm sick of this. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just to reiterate to the people is like, if you're a business owner or, employee that has some regard and control over what they can and cannot do in that career, if you're feeling frustrated, strong emotions, and quote, burnt out, I like what our friend Keith told us one time at a meetup. He said, whatever's causing the burnout, fix that. Right. So go fix that. Right. For gym owners and business owners, like I keep having to deal with this, that, and the other. Well, fuck it. Why? Why does it keep coming to you? Go fix that. Yep. And stay the hell out of it and see if that feeling goes away. But then over the long term, outside of that, so that's small tactical, like emotions and feelings of burnout are different than just transitioning into something completely different. But I think it does come down to three things. What is your true vision for your overall life in each individual area of your life? What does your personal relationships look like? Do you have that backstop of support? And lastly, do you have the financial backing? Do you have the financial backstop? If one of those is missing, you're going to have a harder time during the transition is going to be hard regardless. It's human nature. We don't like change, right? Even if we know and feel it's what's best for us, right? It's still going to be tough. But the stronger the foundation you have on those three things, vision, relationships, and financial backing, that's the trident. We should call that, that's the transition in life trident right there. Your vision, your relationship of that inner concentric circle, the tightest circle you got, and your financial backing. Those are the three things. You can put a green check mark emoji next to those. You're probably ready to make that transition, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I got to say about that. That's why you should always button up the finances, because that's the easiest one. And then you can just move on to the harder shit, the more complex stuff like the relationships, and then figuring out what the fuck you want to be when you grow up.
Yeah. There's very few books. There's very few books that I keep and put on these shelves behind me. But that white one right there, that's The Wealthy Gardener. And John Sfork says it. There's things more important than money in life, but solving the money problem will allow you to focus more on those more important things. And this is exactly, ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what that episode was about. It's not necessarily about the transition. It's about having the chess pieces in place to be able to focus on that transition. So solve those problems of the three foundational pillars that we just created in the transition and life trident. You'll be good to go.
There you go. Dropping tons of knowledge. I love it, Sean. Join us in our free Facebook community, the Tactical Empire community on Facebook. It's free. Hop in there, ask questions in there, subscribe and like our YouTube channel, the Tactical Empire, as well. And you can find Sean and I on Instagram. Shoot us messages if you have any questions you want to get in the inner circle. Let us know. We are happy to help.
See you guys.